Welcome. So we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome. So thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar, Leader as Coach, Breaking the Fixation with Fixing. So my name is Frances Sadi, and I am the Associate Director of Non-Degree Programs here at Brown University's School of Professional Studies. At Brown SPS, our mission is to inspire and equip leaders and professionals such as yourselves with the skills and tools that you need to lead with intention, navigate uncertainty, and transform the way the world works for good. We believe in education that's not only rigorous and practical, but also deeply human-centered and transformational. So before we dive in, just a couple of things to point out. Throughout this talk, we do welcome your engagement. So please use the Q&A feature found at the bottom of the screen to submit your questions. You can submit your questions throughout the talk. We also have the chat feature enabled, and we will be engaging with you at a couple different points throughout the talk. So feel free to use that as well. And then second, this webinar is being recorded, and so we will send a follow-up email with a link to the recording, along with some additional resources and information about our coaching programs. So here at Brown, we are proud to partner with ACT Leadership, which is a globally respected firm known for helping leaders navigate complexity through coaching, systems thinking, and adult development. Together, we've co-developed the Leader as Coach program to help professionals shift from directing to developing and from solving to partnering. And that shared commitment is what brings us here today. More and more, we are hearing a familiar theme from leaders that we work with, and that is the instinct to fix, to jump in, to solve problems fast. And it makes sense. It's rewarded, it feels productive, and it is more often than not well-intentioned. But as today's faculty member, Erin Hutchins, has written, she writes, our seduction with fixing can come at a cost, and it can create dependency, erode trust, and stifle the growth that we actually want to cultivate in others. And so in a recent article, she says, when we fix, we often bypass. We bypass the opportunity for learning, the dignity of struggle, and the space for reflection. The challenge isn't that we want to be helpful, it's that we often rush past what's needed most: presence, patience, and partnership. So today's session is about naming that tendency and offering a new path forward. Coaching-based leadership is not about having the answers. It's about creating the conditions where others can access their answers, where they take ownership, reflect more deeply, and grow through the challenge, not around it. And so that is what we're going to explore today. And to help us do that, I am excited to introduce today's faculty. So Erin Hutchins is the co-founder of ACT Leadership and a seasoned executive coach who's worked with Fortune 500 leaders, emerging managers, and mission-driven teams. She brings decades of insight into what helps leaders truly evolve and what holds them back. And I will drop the link of that article I referenced in the chat in a moment. And then joining today is Robin Rose. So Robin is an associate professor of the practice of leadership and a professional certified coach here at Brown University School of Professional Studies. With over 4 decades of experience in leadership development, change management, and team effectiveness, Robin has been a key figure in designing and delivering transformative programs and in equipping leaders with the skills that they need to navigate complexity with clarity, confidence, and courage. So in a moment, I'm going to hand things over to Robin and Erin, who will walk us through a live demonstration of what it actually looks like to move from fixer to thinking partner. And afterwards, we'll spend a bit of time talking through what internal shifts are needed to actually make that change. And we'll talk about what opens up to us as leaders in taking that more coach-like approach. So Erin and Robin, thank you so much for being here today. Before we jump into that demonstration, I would love just to start with a big picture question. So you've both worked with leaders across a wide range of industries over several decades. What is it about fixing and the urge to fix that makes it so hard to let go of?
Thank you, Fran, for that introduction. And Robin, you start.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I like to think about is the mythology that surrounds leadership and the way the assumptions that we make about leadership and the pressures we put on ourselves as we think about our own leadership. And one of the very common myths of leadership is that effective leaders always have the answer. When you think about that, the amount of pressure, first of all, that puts on the individual to come up with an answer in situations that have become increasingly complex, that is not a helpful amount of pressure to put on ourselves. And it's not just that leaders themselves put that pressure on themselves, but the people they work with often look to them and think about them as, well, you're supposed to know. You're supposed to tell me what it is I need to do. And in those moments of uncertainty, of course, it's understandable that people are looking to you as a leader for answers. But again, as we think about the complexity of issues that we're dealing with, it's not at all realistic. And in fact, the best answers often come from the leader bringing together a variety of people with diverse perspectives who can bring their expertise to the problem-solving process. So there's a social component of why we feel like we need to fix. But Erin is now going to talk about the neuroscience behind it, because it's not just the social pressures, it's also having to deal with the way our brains work. So Erin.
Thanks, Robin. I love what you said there. And I also just feel like fixing, we're using a lot of, first of all, the title of this webinar is funny to me because it's like a mouthful around, our tendency to fix. But yes, so we're going to go into the neuroscience side, and building upon what Robin's saying, I think it feels good to just fix. Yes. Like, it feels good to help people, to help give solutions, be part of the solution. And it makes us feel good inside. It makes us feel like we've accomplished something, we've done something, we've been helpful. And so, on top of the reasons that Robin also mentioned, it just feels good to fix. And that's part of how I think in our society and cultures, we define helping is by fixing and offering solutions. And so while there's a place for that in business and in the corporate world, there's also it also comes at a cost. And to what Robin mentioned, that if our default tendency is to fix and to go into offering solutions and giving advice, then we're not really learning to empower people to find their own solutions, therefore owning their issues or challenges or goals that they're creating. So we're really looking for, how do we help someone be in a place of ownership, take responsibility? So I want to go into a little bit of the neuroscience of why. Like, why does it feel good to help fix and to offer solutions? So first of all, the brain we have the brain is biased towards problem solving. So what makes us different than animals is we have a prefrontal cortex, which is up here. It's the thinking part of our brain. So that helps us be conscious as human beings. And so that part of the brain is responsible for planning, decision making. When it gets activated, it goes into that do mode. So when we are presented with an issue, we're presented with that issue, the quick response or reward of that is, how do I help fix or solve this? And what actually happens is we get a quick dopamine. Some of you might have heard of the chemical dopamine. It's like it gets released. So what happens is like, oh, I have an idea. I know how to solve it. Dopamine gets released because it's a feel good. It's a quick feel good hormone to say, oh, I can help. Yeah. So when a solution is offered, that gets released, and that actually reinforces the habit of fixing. Another reason, and we'll go into a little bit more around like the differences later around taking a coach-like leader approach. Just a couple more other pieces around neuroscience. When leaders perceive that they're making mistakes, and going back to the point Robin mentioned around like as leaders, we feel like we always have to have the answer. And so when leaders perceive that they feel like they're making a mistake or there's a level of uncertainty, the amygdala, which is the back of the brain that controls and regulates our emotion, responds. Yeah, so it's trying to respond because it wants to keep things safe. Yeah, it's reacting. It's reacting from a place of, I feel threatened, therefore I need to react and do. So that is like a natural tendency when we feel threatened that we're going to make a mistake or we don't have the answer. We jump into the uncertainty and the unknown. The amygdala fires in the brain and it says it leads us to have an emotional response or reaction. Okay, so that's the second piece. And then just again about the patterns of the brain and how they work. So a lot of leaders climb the ladder in corporates or rise through the ranks because they're really good at problem solving quickly. And we really value that in business, right? It's like we're looking at results, we're looking at the bottom line. And so if we are associating that with good behavior and that's getting good results, then that pattern becomes fixated. Okay, it becomes encoded as a habitual loop in the brain. So making the need to fix the default, making that the default pathway. So that's a little bit around the neuroscience of why and why it's so hard and it feels so unnatural to create a different way of helping people with their issues or challenges that they might have. So we're going to segue to that in a minute. And Robin and I and Fran, we came together. We really wanted to give you an experience today. So it's one thing to explain things to you and talk to you about it, but we actually want you to see an experience. A lot of people, I think, will resonate with the topic in this role play because, especially if you're a leader or a manager and you work with people, you've probably faced this at some point in your career. So that's our intention, is to give you real experience. I'm going to also ask to elicit answers or suggestions from you all to see how you might respond, and I'll use that in the role play. Robin, anything else that you wanted to say before we switch to the demo?
No, I think let's just jump in, and we're going to do two different versions of this, and with your help and engagement. So be ready to write some thoughts into the chat. I'm ready, Erin, if you are.
Sure. So just a little bit more context. Robin, in this example, I'm going to be playing the leader or manager, supervisor of Robin. So Robin is going to be my direct report. So we're both part of an organization. And for Robin and I are colleagues in this context around teaching coaching out in the world. And what we're doing here is we are doing a role play where I'm going to role play the manager. Robin's going to role play the employee. Robin is going to come to me with a challenge that she's facing, and I'm going to try to help her with my default response. And I'm going to also ask you all in a minute to put your default response into the chat box. So Robin, over to you to present us with your challenge.
Yeah. Erin, thanks for making time to talk about a couple of things with me today. I'm really concerned about Lisa. As you remember, we promoted her it was just about a year ago. And you and I both felt like she was like a rising star and ready to move up. And I'm just not feeling so good about her performance lately. She's not been good about communicating with me and with her peers when she's working on a project. And I've tried to give her feedback a couple of times. And I've said to her, you need to work on your communication. And I don't know if it's not getting through. I'm not getting through. I don't want to like take out the hammer with her. I mean, Lisa and I've worked together for years and I adore her. And I don't want to devastate her. I don't want this to reduce her confidence, but But what I'm noticing is that her peers are starting to get annoyed. Like I see some eye rolling stuff going on because they're starting to have to pick up the slack for her. And I'm actually in some ways trying to pick up the slack a little bit. So I don't know what you want me to do or what we think we should do about it, but I figured it was time that I needed to give you a heads up and talk about what our options are.
Sure. So let's pause there. Thank you, Robin, for presenting us with your challenge. And I would like to ask you that who are listening to pop in the chat box how you might respond to Robin. What's your initial default reaction around if she presented you with this issue, what would you say to her? And now I'll maybe start sourcing some of your answers in this conversation. So, Robin, well, I'm sorry to hear that. It sounds like it's not completely working out with her. I was hoping the same because of, our working relationship before. Um, have you, how many conversations have you, like, is she aware of this? How many conversations have you had with her?
I'd say I've had two where I brought it up and said, um, you need to work on your communication. Yeah, I've had two.
Hmm. Have you tried sitting down with her and going through the feedback model that we created in the company? Like, have you tried using the feedback model?
I Not formally, no, no. I've just said that she needs to work on her communication with her peers and with me, and that's about it. But no, I kind of forgot about it, that protocol. Um,
Someone wrote here, have you tried giving her examples of effective emails of what that looks like?
um, no, I have not been that specific. I haven't been
Mhm.
that specific. It's a little tough to give her feedback because she gets defensive pretty quickly, and I don't want her to, I'm not trying to hurt her. I don't want her to feel defensive. I just need her to I just need her to improve her communication.
Hmm. Someone says that, if you adore her and her work, then your relationship with her before was always good, or were there incidences that would this happen before with her? Could there be issues outside of work? Do you think that might be going on with her?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I haven't really asked her about that. I mean, before she was just working as a peer with all of her peers, and now she actually has one person reporting to her. And that person, George, George, he's come to me and he didn't want to get Lisa in trouble, but he did come to me and say, he has no clue what she expects, and kind of what she expects one day is different the next day. So there's not consistency. So George is pretty frustrated. So that's where some of this is coming from.
Hmm. When a couple of years ago, when I was facing a similar issue with somebody who's actually no longer at the company, I I I sat down and I used that feedback framework, and it worked pretty well. Um, I would encourage you to go back and look at the feedback framework and see if you can use that and schedule a meeting with her. And actually, I can reach out if you want. If you want me to be involved, I can reach out, and the three of us can have a conversation about it.
I think that would be a little overwhelming for her. Like I said, she has a tendency to get defensive, and I kind of think, I mean, actually, I would love for you to handle the whole thing, but that's my job. And um, yeah, I think 2-on-1 would be too much for her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One person, uh, from the audience says, well, actually, defense mechanisms are natural, and so maybe bringing that to light with her might help. That have maybe having her realize that you're a partner with her. Maybe you could try to have that conversation to tell her that you're there for her as a partner.
Yeah, I think one of the dynamics that's at play here is that I've known Lisa for a really long time. I actually hired her and worked with her in my other job before I came here. And so I've been I have been a mentor for her, a really important mentor. So my opinion of her is probably, disproportionately important to her. And so I have to feel like I have to choose my words really carefully so that I don't like crush her.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Robin. We are going to take a moment to pause, and Fran is actually going to um, ask you all a couple questions.
Yeah, so I'm going to launch a
And
poll, just two questions, just kind of take the pulse on how you think Erin is doing. So the first question is, where is the manager's focus right now? So Erin is the manager. She focused on the details of the problem, on providing solutions, or on how Robin is seeing and experiencing the situation. And then the second one is, who is the expert in this conversation? And so again, no right or wrong answers, just interested in seeing how you're experiencing this conversation. And then give folks a chance to fill that out, and then we'll share the results, and then we will shift gears. And
okay. So while
just
you're,
about
oh,
10 more seconds, Erin, sorry.
yes.
I was going to say, while we're waiting for folks to fill that out, I'm going to drop in an additional prompt into the chat, which is, what impact do you think Erin's approach is having on Robin? So if you have submitted your answers to the two questions and have some thoughts on that extra prompt, feel free to put them into the chat. And I am going to go ahead and close this in about 5, 4,
Hmm.
3, 2, 1. So I'm going to end the poll, share the results. So here they are. So the
Hmm.
focus seems to be mostly on providing solutions at 44%. Well, some of you did think that that Erin is spending some time focus on seeing how Robin is experiencing the situation, seeing and experiencing the situation. And then we've got a pretty even split about who is the expert. So I'm going to close that and hand it back to you.
Thank you. Okay. So thank you for popping your responses in the chat. Now I'm going to segue to a different type of conversation with Robin. So going to try to pick up where we last left off. And I want you all to just pay attention to what you're noticing and observing what I'm doing as manager in this conversation. Okay. Robin, so I'm sensing that this is really impacting you. What would be a good outcome from this conversation for you?
Um, I would love for her to magically know exactly what I'm thinking. Um, but I know that's probably not an option. What outcome? I guess an outcome, two outcomes. One is that Lisa would have a clear understanding of why I'm frustrated and why her colleagues are starting to get annoyed. And she would be able to make some behavioral change in response to that. And thirdly, that our longstanding relationship would still be, in good shape.
Hmm. Okay, thank you. So what's important to you about this relationship?
Oh, she's a young person I've mentored for a long time, and she's not like a young person now. She's in more her mid-career, and what's important about it? Well, a couple of things are important. One is that as an organization, we need Lisa to do well in the role.
Mhm.
Um, and I really value my personal / professional relationship with Lisa, and so I want that to be okay. I want that to be intact.
Hmm. What feels hard for you right now in in this situation?
Um, she and I have always had pretty open relationship, and but she's always been a high performer. So when I think about it, I haven't really had to correct her performance like this. Um, so this is the first time, and we've worked together on and off for like 15 years. And so it just feels hard.
Hmm. It sounds like to me that you're maybe assuming something about her, or you're assuming that she can't hear it or the feedback. I don't know if that's right or not, but it sounds
You
like,
know, I think I am assuming that she'll get defensive and be hurt by it. No, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty good at giving feedback, but um, I guess I'm feeling protective of her, protective of the relationship, and I feel like I'm on a little uncharted water with her because I've not in over 15 years. I don't think I've ever had to give her feedback that's this critical, and yeah.
hmm. So what's that like being in you said uncharted waters? Like, what's that like for you?
Yeah, I just don't know what's going to happen, and I know Lisa pretty well, but I have a different feeling about it this time, that maybe she's in a more fragile place because she's in a new role and having questions of her own about her competency. And it just feels a little bit more high risk.
Hmm. So if we were to reframe it around how you were looking at this, because it sounds like you're looking at it from the perspective of this is high risk, you're afraid to maybe lose her or maybe hurt her feelings. What what would it look like from a different perspective?
For me to take a different perspective, is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. So if you weren't hurting her or fearful of hurting her, what could you be instead?
What would I be? I think if I frame it for myself and for her as this is a growth opportunity, and I'm trying to help her to be really successful in this role, um, then that feels a little less risky.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah.
So what is it when you said growth, you're coming from a mindset of growth and helping her in her own growth. How does that impact you when you say that, when you think about it from that perspective?
Um, well, I want all of the people who report to me to like grow and develop. I mean, it sounds really cheesy, but I want them to increase their level of competency and confidence. That's always what drives me. And, it's sort of unusual for me I think you know this, to feel this sort of tentative and protective of the relationship. One of the things that I know about Lisa is she takes time to process feedback. And I don't want to put it in writing because there's too much room for misinterpretation. But maybe if I framed it with her that I have some things that I want to say to her, and I certainly invite her response, but I also want her to know that she can go away and think about it. And when she's ready to come back and have another conversation to clarify even more, because that's what she does, um, that we can have another conversation the next day, 2 days, a week. So it's not just a one and done kind of thing with her, because she doesn't deal well with that kind of one and done thing. She wants to chew on it.
So what are you becoming clearer about now?
Well, number one, that I have to put my big girl pants on and do this. Two, I think I need to be much more specific with her than I've been in the past and give her some examples. I want to frame this as that you and I are both really invested in her success in this role. That's like what's driving this. And I should write these things down. And number four, that we can have a follow-up conversation to clarify stuff.
Hmm.
So they're like four
And
things. Yeah.
and how can I support you in doing those things?
Well, you already have. I mean, this is a helpful conversation. I think I'm okay. The context is it's for growth. You and I are really behind her. We want her to be successful, be specific, and opportunities for more follow-up conversation. I might want to write some things out and try it out on you, but
Mhm.
in general, I'm really good at this, but for some reason, this is just a harder one for me to do.
Well, Robin,
Uh,
I appreciate your trust in me and coming to me with this. And my role and job as your manager is I want to support you and empower you so you feel like you have the tools and confidence to have the conversation. And one of the things that stood out for me in the call is just that when you changed your mindset from seeing her as being fearful of having the conversation or communicating this to this is in service of her growth. It seems like you felt more confident going into the conversation.
yeah.
So we're going to pause here now, and I would like Fran is going to do the next poll, and then we're going to debrief this conversation with you.
Great. So same questions, this time focusing on the second half of this conversation. So first question, where is the manager's focus right now? And then the second is, who is the expert in this conversation? And then I'm also going to put the follow-up open-ended question into the chat about what impact do you think this conversation had on Robin? So we'll wait about a minute or so to let folks fill that out and add a comment to the chat. And also, I want to just invite you all to submit your questions. Thanks for the questions that have already come in. We'll have some time at the end to open it up and have some dialogue. But if you haven't already and you want to put in a question in the Q&A, we invite you to do that.
And thank you for being so active in the chat. love,
Mhm.
love reading your responses.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to wrap this up in about 10 seconds. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, and so this is what the second poll, the results are. So we have, wow, pretty decidedly pointing to that your focus was more on how Robin is seeing and experiencing the situation. 86% of you said that. And then as far as who is the expert, really an even split. There was less uncertainty around that one. But Robin, slightly more towards Robin being the expert. So I'm going to stop sharing that and then turn it back to you, Erin and Robin, if you want to offer any thoughts on debriefing the conversation.
I would like to just ask those that have been observing this to really look at back at the questions I was asking. Like they're very simple questions, right? They weren't like I didn't actually have to say a lot in the second part of the conversation, right? As a leader. I don't know, Robin, if you've felt that. I didn't have to say a lot to Robin.
No. Mm-mm. No, and you asked several really powerful questions where I had to sort of stop and think more in response to what you were asking about. So you asked questions like, should we try to identify what those questions were?
Yeah, we can go there, and I want to just shift to also You said the what questions. So focus on what questions. And I think maybe if we share this slide, it will help debrief what was actually happening.
Okay.
Let's try doing that now, and then let's turn back to the chat. See if I can find my slide. Here we go. Okay. I'm going to put it in presenter mode. Let's see, slideshow. Can you see it as a slide now?
Oh, we're looking at the,
Yep, you're good.
yep.
Okay. So this idea of what if the brightest idea wasn't yours? It wasn't yours. What if the brightest idea wasn't yours? Let's think about that question, for example. Again, back to that dopamine response that we talked about earlier when we want to share something, give advice or fix the problem, when our focus is on the problem, you know, we get dopamine release. And that light bulb goes off in our head, the fixer's head. But the light bulb might not be going off in the other person's head. It may or may not land, just like in the first part of the conversation with Robin. Maybe some of the things, have you tried some of the advice I was giving to? Maybe she's already done some of this. But I'm spending a lot of time trying to have the light bulb go off in my head versus Robin's in that first part of the conversation.
Mm.
So as a coach like leader, this is what's happening. There's Robin and there's the issue. So generally, what's happening is the employee is just really focused on the issue themselves, right? They are the ones that are like, I'm coming in with an issue, help me. In the first example, the first part of the conversation, I was more of a manager that was focused on the issue with Robin. We were both staring at the issue in front of our face and providing solutions around the issue. So that's like the first part of the conversation. My focus is on the issue. And the second part of the conversation, I'm viewing Robin as she's actually creative and a resourceful whole person. She has the ability to actually think through this herself. So when I view her that way, I can just ask her if I can find the right questions to ask her that will help stimulate her thinking for her to come up with a solution, not me. Therefore, the light bulb going off in the employee's head. So the employee is still focused on the issue, but the coach like leader is focused on the employee and how the employee is viewing the issue, the relationship to the issue. So instead of in the second part of the conversation, I'm curious about how is Robin seeing and experiencing this? How is this impacting her? And how can I be supportive of how she can ultimately come up and own her own solution versus telling it to her, telling her my great idea?
Mhm.
Robin, do you want to say more about this?
Yeah, I think it's a great example of, Erin in this situation has lots of expertise. She can give me lots of solutions, but I don't know if you've had this experience yourselves, but oftentimes when we go to giving people solutions right away, then we get disappointed later because they didn't implement any of them, because not because they were trying to be a pain in the neck, but it just, they didn't have any sense of ownership over it. That's not always true, but it's often true. Yeah, somebody wrote in the chat, this kind of conversation supports more buy-in because ultimately the answers are coming from that person, not from me, or not from the other person. So yeah.
And it's
And
super
it really,
hard.
it is super hard because our urge, for all the reasons that Erin was talking about earlier, to like give a quick solution, plus the social context of leaders are supposed to have all the answers, really drags us in that direction pretty fast. That is not to say that there aren't times when, as a leader, it is appropriate. It's really appropriate for you to give direction, but not always. Yeah.
And in the first, which Fran is going to mention in a few minutes around the Leaders Coach program, because we have a whole program that teaches you how to use these tools and techniques. But the first part is actually having to unlearn a lot of our default tendencies to self-manage ourselves. So, when Robin or your employee comes to you with a problem or a challenge, it's like, oh, okay. Oh, have you tried? Oh, but when I did this, this is what worked for me. It's learning to manage those default responses into how do I focus on my employee and how she or he is viewing it
Mhm.
so then I can ultimately support. So just moving to the next slide.
And Aaron, one of the things I loved that getting
Yeah.
to the point is you started the conversation. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but it was really like asking Robin, how can I help you today? What would you like to get out of this conversation? And I think that allows you really like if Robin truly is coming because she wants to brainstorm possible solutions, she at least has an opportunity to name that as a goal, um, versus just immediately assuming that that's what she wants you to do.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
what you just said could save hours of time in meetings, I think. So
Right, exactly. Aaron, you have a great next slide one that sort of
yeah,
breaks down the fixing mindset versus the coach-like leader.
this is just we're not going to read all of these, but you can see on the screen just some of the differences. And people always say, "Oh, but coaching, being coached like that could take so long." But actually, when you were observing me, it doesn't take long if you know how to utilize the tools. And ultimately, it saves you so much time and energy and money in the end because you're learning to have the person own the issue themselves, therefore decreasing their dependency to come to you as the leader. Okay. So I think, Robin, we probably said a lot about this and a little bit about context, the framework of sort of fixing mindset
Mhm.
to coach like leadership. Anything else, Robin, you want to share before we segue to Fran?
No, I think we've made the points that are important to make. And again, what we're trying to help leaders do is expand their range so that they have more options than just giving direction and telling people what to do. It's about expanding your range. So, yeah, Fran, why don't you share a little bit about, how would somebody go about learning more about how to do this?
Yeah, happy to share that. And then, as I said, whatever time we have left, we can use for question and answer.
Mhm.
And so keep the questions coming.
Fran, I'm seeing desktop one and new desktop at the at the bottom of my screen.
Um,
Is that true for other people? Doesn't matter. There you go. You
yeah,
cleared it.
got it.
Thank you.
Good.
Yep, it's fine. It's perfect.
So the Leader as Coach program, if you visit our website, you'll see that we offer this program in two formats. So we have an in-person offering as well as a 7-week online program. And so the idea behind that is really that it allows you kind of to choose your own adventure, as well as far as being able to kind of select the option that works best for you based on your learning style, needs, and also what logistically might just work best for you. So here's some of the details, the basic details here. But our online Leader as Coach program will start up in September on the 16th. So I believe that's in 2 weeks, and we'll run on Tuesday evenings for 7 weeks. It is live synchronous classes, so you'll log on with a cohort, usually around 20 to 30 individuals, as well as two instructors who are certified coaches. And this program is really designed for individuals who not necessarily are looking to become executive or leadership coaches themselves, but who want to learn that what it looks like to be a leader like coach, to take those coaching skills and be able to employ it in their everyday work life so they can have stronger, more effective conversations. And so the in-person offering will be on Wednesday, October 15th through Friday, October 17th. It's going to be here on our Rhode Island campus in Providence, Rhode Island. And those are 3 full days. So here's the exact schedule for the online program. You can find all of this information online as well. And I will put a link to our Leader as Coach website into the chat after this as well. And so you'll see for the in-person offering, it's 3 full days. And it really allows for more of an intensive experience. So 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So with the online program, it is allows you kind of to have a little bit more of a self-paced. You'll have a little bit more pre-post work in between the sessions and a little bit more time to actually apply what you're learning throughout the week. Whereas the intensive 3-day session, as you can imagine, there's less time to really do the pre-post work, but it does, on the flip side, it allows you kind of really fully be immersed. So I actually took the 3-day program last spring, and one of the things I loved about it is that I was able to take time off of work, devote that time for to be there in person. There's something really fun and organic that comes about with being in a live setting in person, and that you really are able to kind of fully embrace and kind of be immersed in the curriculum for those 3 days. So again, it's kind of whatever you think would work best for your personality and circumstances. So either way, online or in person, the curriculum is the same, and it consists of 6 modules. So I'll kind of go through these quickly, given what time it is. So the first is coaching foundations. So this is where you're going to learn why coaching matters, as well as how to create safety and trust within your teams. You'll also learn the difference between coaching and mentoring, and be able to begin building a coaching mindset to get ready for the program. So then in module 2 is active listening and questioning. So this is one of my favorite modules, is kind of getting away from asking close-ended yes/no questions or kind of a lot of self-referential talking and more towards active listening and being able to ask really thoughtful, open-ended questions, similar to what Erin was employing in her second role play. Then in module 3, you're going to learn concrete coaching skills and begin to master the structure of a coach-like conversation. So one of the things I love about the program is it's incredibly applied. So as you're learning the skills, you're actually practicing them right there in the class, in both dyads and triads, being able to try to work out and role play these things together. Then by module 4, you're actually going to be invited to take a step back and think about your values and purpose. And so in doing so, that will be able to really ensure that when you are coaching or having a coach-like conversation, that you will remain grounded in those values. So something that happens often, if we get into more of a reactive mindset, we can sometimes lose sight. So both reactive and problem solving, we kind of lose sight of what our values and purpose are. And so by able to practice these skills and also focus, what are my intentions in this conversation? What are my values or the goals of the company or goals in this work setting? It allows you to kind of stay focused on that. Then module 5, reactive to creative, helps participants identify when they or their colleagues are kind of operating in that survival mindset. And it allows you to provide you tools to shift from reactive to creative problem solving. So,
Fran, can I just stop you here for a second? Because what I wanted to say is actually, I wanted to tie it back, this particular piece of reactive to creative, to the demo with Robin, because as you could see, Robin was first operating from a place of a protective mindset of wanting to protect this person. You know, she was she was fearful of having the conversation. And so this is just an example. As leaders and as people, we all hold assumptions and self-limiting, we call it, beliefs that hold us back from actually truly seeing a situation how it is, the truth of it. And so in this particular module, you're learning to help other people reframe how they're viewing it, which is really particularly powerful in business because so many decisions and conversations happen from a place of reactivity. So sorry to jump in there, but I felt like that was important to say.
100%. Thank you. And then in module 6, it looks at sustainment, application, and integration, which really I find valuable because it allows the participants in this program, you, the participants, to be able to practice and embed the skills through real life applications. So, the research around learning and the process of learning is that really it's the more you practice, the more you engage with the material, the more likely you are to actually retain it and integrate it into your daily routine, into your approach. And as Erin was saying, it's about kind of unwiring or rewiring and moving away from some of our default habits towards maybe a different approach. Okay, so here's the learning outcomes by the end of the program. You'll be able to gain multidimensional leadership skills tailored for today's fast-changing, complex workplace, the ability to build trust and lead more meaningful interactions, practical techniques to empower, motivate, and engage your team, and then strategies to help uncertainty, to navigate uncertainty with greater clarity and confidence. Here are the details on registration. As I mentioned, I will put the link to enroll in the chat, but we are running a discount right now for attendees of these webinars that you'll be able to get 15% off by using the LAC Info 15 discount code, and that will be open up through next Tuesday, end of day. So I think, just a quick plug. So if you are interested in potentially becoming a coach as a profession, so we have a couple programs that ACT runs. So the first is ACT's Leadership and Performance Coaching Certification, or LPCC, and I can put the links to these programs. But this would allow you to become a ICF Level 1 accredited certification program. It's an 8-month program. And then there's also a team coaching program, which is ideal for coaches who want to expand their impact by working with groups, teams, or organizations. It builds on core coaching competencies and providing framework to navigate group dynamics, systems thinking, and organizational change. So if you're interested in deepening your practice beyond one-on-one coaching, as I recognize some people here might already be coaches, so this could be a program for you. So I'll put the links in the chat, and that is it. So I'm going to hand it back over to you, Robin and Erin.
And somebody asked if you're able to share the slide deck with them.
While we aren't able to send out the slide deck, what we are is in the recording, you'll actually be able to see the slide, so you can pause it and take down the notes. But I will put the discount code and the links to the program and all that in the chat right now. And so, yeah, let's open it up for questions. I know that there's a few that have come up through the chat already, or the Q&A feature. Erin and Robin, I don't know if you've gotten a chance to look at any of them yet. I can read them out loud if not.
Yep. I see the first one. Melissa is asking, I feel added social pressure to fix as a female. Is there a neuroscience relation to this? I don't know offhand about a neuroscience relation, but I will say that it really depends on how you're defining helping. And so if you're defining helping others by fixing or giving solutions or making things good and right, then your tendency is more geared towards doing that. And I think as far as social pressure, I mean, I don't know, Robin, if you want to answer that piece, I'd be curious to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair and safe to say that women and men get reinforced for different things sometimes. And women who are balancing work outside of the home and raising children, for instance, juggling a lot. There's a lot of social reinforcement for being the fixer for females, but I actually don't know either whether there's what the neuroscience tells us about gender differences and how we respond to that reinforcement. But socially, yeah, I agree with the person who wrote that there is certainly a lot of reinforcement for women to be the fixers. The other question here is, in a smaller organization, the problems are more specific business problems and not people-centric. How do we use the method in those contexts? Well, business problems are people problems, aren't they? Really, when you think about it, it's like decisions about launching a product or service, or analyzing your market, whatever. I mean, even problems that seem very quantitative, data driven, get interpreted through the lenses of human beings. So I think there's, no matter what the issue is, there's also always a people perspective in that. As people evaluate data, they're thinking about, how is that to my advantage? How is it to my disadvantage? How is that a threat to my company? So I kind of feel like there's always an interpersonal or personal, professional angle, even on the most, quote, objective data. Erin, what's your response to that?
Just I would agree with what you said. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Are there
Other,
any, yeah, any
go ahead.
other questions? Feel free to pop in the chat box or in the Q&A. Um, I will say that, you know, this is something that seems very easy to do. Like, and when people come in the program, always on day one or day two or session one or two, they're like, ouch, my brain hurts. This hurts. Because that unlearning and the unwiring around how to show up and be there for people takes that takes time to build those new neural pathways in your brain. And once you do, and once you've stretched your range that way, it becomes more natural and less of, how do I rethink how I'm approaching it, and more natural. And that's ultimately our goal. Is we don't want to give you a bunch of tools you're not going to use. We want to give you tools that are going to be embedded in you as a person and integrated into your leadership style. So you don't have to think about how to use it, but they become very natural to you in everyday conversation. So thank you for your time today and for your participation. I also want to thank Fran for hosting this webinar, and also Robin for her continued partnership. Robin leads many of our programs, and you even saw her in our pictures. So she's like our celebrity at ACT. So we're
Yeah,
grateful that she's
I
here.
have a good PR agent. Yeah, right.
Yeah, Robin and Erin, it's always a pleasure to work with you and to learn from you. So thank you so much for being here today and leading us in this discussion. And honestly, wonderful engagement in the chat, and just to see the range of perspectives and wisdom that's already there. So thank you for everyone who logged on today. Look for an email from us, and probably early next week, with a link to the recording. And if you are interested in learning more about becoming a coach-like leader, we would love to see you in the classroom this fall. So take care, everyone. Have a good weekend.